Welcome to a late episode of Three Men and a War Game. I am your host, Kevin, and I am joined by my two co-hosts. One of them is...
Paul! And I'm still loving the sultry intros.
All right, hell yeah.
I'm
going to keep it sultry.
Yeah, and Potter. Sorry.
I'm glad you're lagging behind there, just like this episode.
I was like, wait, is he going to say the other one, or am I supposed to talk? I'm confused.
No, we're good. I was waiting for Paul to tee you up, and I was like, oh no, it didn't happen. This is
I didn't
awkward.
know I was
now,
supposed to be teeing him up.
We are a professional podcast.
Highly professional.
Not like we haven't been doing this for 5 years.
Homie, I'm professional. Right. That's a little dicky joke for you guys. Okay, so hobby progress. I'm going to go first this time. Is that okay?
Sure.
Ooh, yeah.
All right. So my hobby progress is that I have painted some models. So I got some stuff on the table and I did some painting. And I also gave myself a thematic October painting project. And I'm not going to tell either of you two until I have it built and primed. But it is themed around the month of October, and it is a game that you guys know I don't play ever, but deeply love painting models for. And those are the hints that you're going to get. And then I'll make sure I start posting pictures on the Discord and send them once I start painting these models.
Don't play ever.
Hey,
I have an inkling. I have an inkling.
Yeah.
I have an inkling.
Spoil it. You can send me a text, but don't spoil it on air.
Not spoiling. Nothing
I'm going to say it's Hello Kitty
Cool.
Surprise.
There it is. That is the game. You nailed it. So the other thing that I've been doing, this hobby progress, is actually way more on theme for me more recently. And I wanted to talk to you guys about it because it's really exciting. And I just want to shout from the rooftops about this game. So I spent the better part of many hours exactingly and lovingly printing and cutting out entire starter decks for Star Wars Unlimited.
That's amazing. Yep. You and Bab did that too, and you guys should play and let everybody watch.
I agree.
So we could do that. We could do a little webcam game. I have played 11 games of Star Wars Unlimited now with the starter decks, and I'm not sick of them. I wish I had more cards and I could, I do wish I had more cards and I could deck build, but what I mean is that I'm still having a ton of fun playing with these starter decks. After 11 times, I'm learning more about how I should be playing this game. And I think that speaks volumes. And the thing I want to say about it that is, a thing that, is just making it sort of bringing it into the theme of our podcast is that, and anybody who's played Star Wars Destiny, I think will already sort of know this intrinsically about the game system of Star Wars Unlimited. But the thing that I would say is that the difference between this card game and most board building card games, and I say that because games like Flesh and Blood are kind of in a class on their own because they play different than the other ones. But the games where you're building and developing a board on the table, right? So you're Magic the Gathering, your Hearthstone, your Pokemon, all that stuff. And this game, there's a gulf between these games, and the gulf is similar to the difference between an I Go, You Go and an alternating activations war game. That's the level of difference in feeling as you're playing. So the thing I would say is that Magic and Pokemon and Hearthstone and all those games feel more akin to an I Go, You Go war game like Warhammer 40K or Kings of War or War Machine or whatever, right? Where on your turn, you are doing all the things you can do. And then occasionally there's something your opponent can do that is an interrupt or something that you do something and they have your reaction or whatever, right? But in Star Wars Unlimited, every time you do a thing, so you play a card, you play a unit, you attack with a unit, every action you take, you pass the turn to your opponent and your opponent does something. And then they pass back to you and then you do something. And then you pass back to them until they do something, until you run out of resources for the round. And only then the round ends and you draw more cards and you can place more resources. And that constant back and forth is different because it's not like I'm just going to unload all my shit and do everything I can to you. It's that I have to think about what your next 3 moves are every time I do something and plan out my future moves accordingly, because you get counterplay at every single step of the game.
That's exciting.
It's so refreshing. And it really, the theme is so good. The things that the characters do are on point. Like, one of the things I would say is that so 3PO and R2 are 2 of the cards, obviously, in the first set, right?
Sure.
And so here's what they do. So when you play or attack with R2, he lets you look at the top of your deck, and then you can put it back at the bottom. Because if you think about what R2 does, right? He's like unlocking stuff, taking information, doing things, right? And so that's what he does. And now 3PO, when he attacks or you put him down, you can name a cost and then reveal the card on the top of your deck. And if the cost that you named is the cost of that card, you get to draw that card and put it into your hand, which is like the protocol droid, right? It's like negotiating a thing. But now if you think about what the 2 droids do together, R2 lets you look at the top cards so you know what the cost is.
Yeah, right.
And then you know what to say when you do the 3PO thing. So they naturally combo together. And that's just like one of the small, subtle, beautiful details that they've put into the game that make it feel really thematic and appropriate to Star Wars.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic.
Really cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Cool. So that's my hobby progress. It's my super secret thing. Well, the thing I painted was actually a Crisis Protocol mini because it was on my desk and I wanted to paint it. And then also I got this other project out that is a number of models that are themed for next month. That's a game I never get to play but care dearly about. And that's my hobby progress.
Not terrible.
Ooh, I think I just figured it out. I'm going to have to text you.
Yeah.
I've kind of been going a little easy on the hobby since I did so much while watching Ruby, because I did a shit ton there. So I kind of withdrew for a little bit, but I got back on it. But I am not allowed to talk about what I'm working on, and Chops knows what it is.
I don't know.
I can't. I'm not at liberty to discuss.
Yeah. I mean, what I've been sending Chops updates for like days now.
Well, you
like
suck.
all week. Yep. It's a good one. It's a good one. I'm excited about it. Actually, I'm extremely excited about it. And what I do know is that patting myself on the back, it's coming out really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's exciting. And I guess I guess it's kind of hobby. I've been playing a good bit of Final Girl. Does that count?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good.
Final Girl's great, and it has miniatures you can paint. We're counting.
That's true. Well, I haven't ventured that far into them. I figure feature films first.
Yep.
I like it.
But yeah, that's it for me.
For me, a whole lot of no hobbying. I mean, going to California for half a month can do that to you, and then coming back and Lorcana launches, and I've been doing that with the kid.
That counts.
Yeah,
we'll count it.
Okay, cool. I mean, it's not progress, but I progress in terms of the fact that I found cards. So
yes, and you're playing a cool tabletop game with your kids.
So I got 2 rounds in today, and we got more planned for tomorrow. Then that came out when I came back, or right before I left, and then I came back and Starfield came out, so I've been playing that too.
Ah, yes, video games, the old hobby destroyer.
Yep, exactly. So,
good thing video games don't interest me a whole lot these days.
They interest me too much.
It took Tears of the Kingdom to pull me back, but now I'm definitely paying more attention to them than I had for a while. Yeah. But guys, let's get to this main topic, hey?
The main event.
Yes. This is an important one.
Yes. So because it's topical, for reasons that we'll get to, we're going to talk about Kickstarter tonight. And it's actually, it's incredible to me that we've never talked about Kickstarter, like on its own, right? Like we've done episodes about Kickstarter games. That's actually going to come up here. for a specific reason, but we've never actually discussed Kickstarter. And so what I did ahead of the episode, without your guys' knowledge, is I came up with kind of like 5 Kickstarter commandments. And outside of the first one, they all have like a pretty good, I would say like a pretty good direct anecdote for us from the store to refer to in terms of why the rule is a rule. So you guys ready to, I think that's it, right? We kick it off and we talk about each of these five commandments of Kickstarter. So here's the first one. And the first one is not related to a specific game. And this is a commandment generally for Kickstarter. And that is never back a project for more than you'd be willing to lose on a 50-50 bet in Vegas.
Ooh, I like that.
Because that will speak to your comfort level. And I mean, you really have to consider that, like that, because that's what the odds of a Kickstarter fulfilling are a lot better than 50-50, or the platform just wouldn't exist. Right. But losing money hurts. So I thought a long time about how I would phrase this rule. And I think, because I thought about like never then you'd lend a friend or whatever. But I think really what it is if you were sitting at a roulette table and you knew you were going to, walking up, you were going to bet red or black, never put more on a Kickstarter than you would on that bet.
Right.
Because that's an amount of money you are comfortable losing. It will not hurt you.
Yeah. I think that's a good rule of thumb.
All right. And so I think this is going to be the rule with the least discussion. But I also think it's the most important. And that's why I put it as the first commandment of Kickstarter. Okay. So the second Kickstarter commandment is be wary of big promises from an unproven company.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. And that's very pertinent right now.
That you're goddamn right.
Hashtag relevant.
Hashtag show I don't actually like. Okay. So let's talk about this. When you see a Kickstarter, a lot of Kickstarters are big and flashy, and there are a lot of times when you don't recognize the publisher at all. Or not necessarily the publisher, but the company that's doing it. Now, that shouldn't stop you by itself from backing. That could just be your own ignorance to this section of the market that this thing is coming from. But what I would say is at that point, do your research. Search the company if you don't recognize it. And if you go to their webpage and the only product they have on their webpage is the one that's on the Kickstarter, that's a red flag, my friends. And that's not to say that companies can't come out swinging, right? And I will say that outside of that first one and the fifth rule, none of these are hard and fast. That's why I say be wary of big promises from an unproven company. If the unproven company, for example, is headed by a former head of a video game studio that's very reputable and has reputation to lose, for example, that might be something that's worth looking at, right? But if it's just like a faceless thing with a big flashy Kickstarter making all kinds of promises, that's when you want to be wary. And here's the prime example that we have of this. It's Broken Anvil.
Yep, broken is right.
All right. And so this is actually going to dovetail us into a little bit of a story. And I don't know if you guys want me to tell the current Broken Anvil thing, or if one of you wants to take a crack at it, let me know.
I was like, I just know what kind of Paul filled me in on the other day. I haven't done a lot of research on it.
Okay. So the like 30,000 foot view is that Broken Anvil Miniatures is a company that had previously been known for doing 3D printing and the ability to buy STLs to print for yourself. They were a company that was primarily based around designing miniatures and then selling those designs, right? And they were fairly successful, but they launched a Kickstarter for a war game called Rivenstone. And this was a very successful Kickstarter that was preceded by a very successful Adepticon that they invited lots of influencers to try and play to prove out the system. And after announcing the game months before this demo, they brought in respected rules developers to create the rules for this game. And the reason I say that this is important because I think those people are all the best intentions. They didn't know anything would ever go awry, and we shouldn't be putting any angst toward those people. That's the thing I want to say. Like the Will Hungerfords in this thing are blameless.
Right.
They were hired after the game was announced to come in and help with the rules.
Yep.
Okay. So the Kickstarter goes live, and this is a company that's never delivered a project on this scope. Previous to this, all they have done is released a couple very successful lines of 3D printable models. And so this is completely unproven territory, and they did appear to have hired a lot of the right people, and the Kickstarter was very successful because of the things and the moves that they made before they launched the Kickstarter. But
it was extremely well presented. The models looked great.
Yeah. That's what I mean. And that's what I mean by big promises from an unproven company, right?
They even put product in influencers' hands to paint and show off on their YouTubes, their Instagrams, everything.
Yeah, the CEO cast, they were showing off the like production material. They had like a very, very cool World of Warcraft vibe, like in terms of like its visual style. Everything seemed really above board, right? And a lot of times with these campaigns, everything does seem really above board. And that's, again, why I say be wary when the company's unproven, because they may not have the expertise to make the thing happen. And so what happened in this case wasn't necessarily a lack of expertise. What it sounds like is that the money generated from the Kickstarter was assumed to be a bottomless well, and they brought on more people and more stuff than they probably had business doing before they delivered. So they started to run out of money. And
Chops. I was looking into this a little bit more today, and the numbers that are floating out there and how true they are, I don't know.
Sure, yeah. So let's be really careful about presenting.
Yeah,
right?
This is just internet wordage.
Takes a lot of
but if it's, even if it's anywhere like near it or even half of these numbers, it's just like egregious. But word was they were paying about $10,000 a month in office space fees.
All right.
And salaries were approaching, they had 20 people. And those numbers I don't think work out. But they said it was nearing like $100,000 or so every month or every other month.
That does even out depending on what some of those people were being paid.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, that's a lot of money for
for
a
Kickstarter that generated less than $2 million, right? Like less than $1 million, I think. So, yep. I mean, maybe even less than $500,000, right? It was successful.
Yeah. I think total between everything, I think it was $650,000 maybe.
Oh, wow. All right. So that's
all the projects.
So they didn't have a lot of runway, right? So what they did was they launched another Kickstarter that was supposed to rival like Bones, like a Reaper Bones Kickstarter, right? Just like a big crate of, here you go, it's a bunch of minis, buy them. And then after that, another Kickstarter for a line of paints. And this is before delivering either of the previous Kickstarters or providing pertinent updates. Now this is all just evidence to the commandment, which is, again, be wary of big promises from an unproven company, because these are the things that happen, right? Now, there are successes that come from this. There are games that come from unproven companies, and those games launch the company into prominence. Now, I don't have a perfect wargaming example of this, but I can say that Stonemaier Games, board gaming behemoth that has, the publisher of Wingspan and Scythe, started out as a Kickstarter for a little game called Viticulture. And and they were completely unproven and I think it was actually just Jamie Stegmaier on his own at that point, right? And so that's an unproven company with a big promise, a gorgeous Euro board game with tight rules that plays well with like medium. It's like a medium weight game, so good for introducing to maybe non-gamers. Like a lot of big promises for a board game, but the success of that game launched Stonemaier into more subsequent Kickstarters, and now they're one of the biggest publishers in the game. So, or at least one of the most looked at and respected sort of publishers in the game. And so that's to say there are successes, but you have to be wary.
Mm-hmm. You know, and it's even worked for miniature companies, right? Like that's how Steamforge got started, right?
Oh, sure. Steamforge was Guild Ball. Yeah, that's a perfect example. And now they're, you know, a sort of mainstay in weird video game tie-in board games.
Yep. And D&D models.
Yeah,
I forgot about
counters
those,
or whatever. Yeah, those are very successful. Yep.
And they're nice looking models. And they also do the dogs in dungeons and cats in catacombs or whatever.
The dog is that? I didn't realize it was them.
Yep, and then also God Tier, right, which was also kickstarted. So yeah, but they were proven at that point. But yeah, they started with Guild Ball, unproven, just some dudes that were like, "Yo, we really like War Machine. Check out this war." We did a little bit of work in the video game industry for a while, but you'd never heard of us. Coming back this weird soccer game. Right.
Yes, please, America, support the soccer game.
Anyway, like, yeah, this is to say that there are successes, right? But again, you just want to be really careful about what you're backing. Now, the second commandment of Kickstarter is third. This is the third. You're right. This is the third. I apologize. The third Kickstarter commandment: be very wary of companies with a revolving slate of undelivered campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one was to be wary of those big promises from unproven companies. And the second one is to be very wary of companies with a revolving slate of undelivered Kickstarter campaigns. Now, this is important because, I mean, we have the Broken Anvil as an example already, right? Because this is what happened. They started doing more and more Kickstarters. But the companies that I really want to highlight right now are the companies that do lots of big projects. Like they'll have 6 or 7 open campaigns, and they are close to delivering 1 or 2 of them, but have a track record of delivering. And so we have a couple really good examples here. Cool Mini or Not is one of them, right? So if we talk about CMON, I don't know how many factually they have out right now. I would guess it's 5 games that they, I think, have that are probably yet to be delivered. But then you also have a company like Awaken Realms, or the example we're really going to use here, Mythic Games. So either of you, are you aware of Mythic Games and what's going on with that company?
I've heard of the company, but I didn't know there was any issues going on.
Oh yeah. Big, huge issues. Paul, do you know anything about this?
No, I didn't get that far down the rabbit hole when I was trying to get into some of this stuff earlier.
All right. So Mythic Games is a board game publisher with up to before the pandemic, a very good reputation. Had delivered some excellent games. Actually, quite a few excellent, just giant miniature board game campaigns. Well received. People who got them liked the games. They were getting and this speaks for itself in the campaign that I'm going to bring into this example. And so Mythic Games is the company that partnered with Privateer Press to bring
that one, yes.
Monster Apocalypse. Yes. So that's Mythic Games. And so what happened with Mythic is that they're one of these companies that has multiple open things as it's going. And the reason that this is an issue, right, is because the pandemic hit Mythic while they were in this sort of state where they were using the next Kickstarter to kind of help pay for the previous one.
Right.
Because they're just always looking for that influx of capital. Mm-hmm. And the pandemic hit, and we had that like sort of condensing as things like materials were less available, shipping costs went up. all the prices came up and the whole thing, constricted.
Right.
And so that caused them to actually, in what is now universally thought of as a bad move, basically told their backers that they had the games, but they couldn't afford to ship them. So if they wanted the games that they already paid for via Kickstarter, or, they backed, I shouldn't say paid for, right? Because it's never a guarantee. Right. They'd already paid for the games they backed. And after the company was like, yo, we've got them, but we're not going to ship them to you unless you each give us X dollars to ship them.
Yeah, I remember
they
that
held
happening.
them hostage. It was kind of gross. That's like really gross.
Pretty gross. And they had a slate of games behind that. One of which is still we're waiting on delivery of that one, and that one has to come before Monster Apocalypse, which is the one I care about. So you see where I'm sitting right now, right? I kind of feel like it's just never going to happen for me. My money's already spent. I'm never going to get a refund. I'm never going to get Monster Apocalypse.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from other people too, is that there's no belief that it will ever see the light of day. No, it will almost certainly not. It is donezo. We're not getting it. And this is, I want to just highlight this number. This is after Monster Apocalypse generated $1.3 million on Kickstarter.
I didn't realize it was that much.
And it was a big deal. I'm actually embarrassed to talk about how much I backed this game for. But I think if you go back and listen to episodes about me talking about Monster Apocalypse, it will be understandable because I was super hyped on the ability to back this game and get Mompoc at a reasonable price for all the minis that I wanted. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, I was absolutely jacked for it. And, here we are. So now, like, this is actually a thing that I don't think I'll ever do again. I think when I say be very wary, for me, it means never do it. Any game, for me personally, right? Because any game from one of these companies, where if I look at your company and I look back at your past, if it says like 75 projects, under your title, and I click in there and I see that you have 3 games that haven't been delivered to their backers, and you're putting a 4th one up on Kickstarter, there is a 0.0 to infinity chance that I will ever back that game.
No, that sounds right.
Yeah. I think that's a good rule to follow, because I'm not in a similar boat because I didn't kickstart it, but I pre-ordered some Rivenstone stuff, and I don't think I'm ever going to get it.
It hurts. I'll tell you, I'm in for more than 4 times.
Oh yeah, because I only did like the dwarf
Don't say it. Don't say it because I don't want other people to know how much.
Well, all I was gonna say was I just got a small, there's just the intro stuff, just because I wanted to give it a chance.
Yeah,
but
but this is the internet and it's forever, and people will be able to easily see one of those boxes is $100, and I confidently said that I'm over 4x what you put in.
I don't really. I put in more than that, so I will say that a little bit, but not much.
Kevin, I just have this image of your wife being like, "I'm gonna listen to their podcast for once and pick this one," and hear the number, be like, "Oh no."
Babe, it's the only time it's happened. Every other Kickstarter has delivered. I promise this is the only time it's happened, and it came out of my personal money. All right, that's the end of that.
Your ass has been covered.
I had to leave that personal message in case that actually does become true for some weird-ass reason.
Oh, man. All right, anyway. Now that I'm not getting you in trouble anymore.
Yeah, we will...
For reference, how much did you say the Monpoc brought in?
$1.3 million.
Rivenstone, $233,000.
Yeah, there's a difference. There's an order of magnitude.
Forged which was their second one, with the Reaper Bones.
They wanted to Reaper Bones it. Yep.
$243,000, and then the paint was $144,351.
So we're at almost $600,000, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
A little over
just
600,
over,
actually.
yeah.
I can do math. Yeah, I can do math. Over 600. Wow, that's a lot of money.
Their investors got to be mad.
I mean, well, they probably didn't have any. That's the thing. But so think about that in terms of like Mythic Games and Monpok, and think about how that plays for Privateer Press. Privateer is already in a bad way, and like this is not helping them at all.
This is, I think, one of those things that, Privateer Press is like counting on to give them some goodwill.
And loyal. And then also, Mike, possible, if it was to do well and deserve a second printing, go to retail and then do well at retail so they could get some residual income from the licensing.
Yeah.
And realistically, this was a genius idea.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because now you have the miniature gamers that are already in it, right? Being able to introduce it to their friends. But since you're having a popular board game company produce it and put it out there, that's introducing to it
Another
to
audience.
their fans.
Yep.
It's got brilliant. It is a great idea.
Very smart. And it does play like a board game, So
yep, absolutely.
It was very smart. And I think actually no one should blame Privateer at all because they were just licensing their product and advising on the rules. Mm-hmm. The logistics of it, they were counting. They sold the rights to publish the game to Mythic because Mythic, said they were on top of it. This would be like blaming Disney for the Lorcana card shortage. It's not Disney's fault. It's Ravensburger's fault. Mm-hmm. So the same thing applies here. It's not Privateer's fault. I just mean it doesn't play well because Privateer's already not in a great spot. I don't think.
They're not doing well
relative to the industry.
They're not doing well right now.
It doesn't seem. No. It doesn't seem that way. Not even when you're in their most diehard groups does it seem that way, unfortunately. But
because as we knew, I was all in for the new edition. The money that I bought Rivenstone with was the money that was supposed to be my Signar army.
Oh no.
No,
I went from one to the other, man.
Boy, you put bad money after bad, and then threw that into a fire.
Yeah, well, there was someone on this podcast that I will not name that got me fully into Rivenstone.
Everybody. I mean, I was in.
But that's just it, though, right? Like, I mean, it looks great.
And the playthroughs.
I don't blame anybody for backing it, right? Like, it's not like it's like, oh, that was dumb.
The playthroughs that Hungerford showed were amazing. I was all in.
But,
I know.
Yeah. But guys, this is why we're here, right? You can't write the 5 Kickstarter commandments if you haven't lived
That's
them.
true.
You gotta have that experience to back up what you're going to say.
Privateer's video game, which was a big mess too.
Oh yeah. But guys, we got to move on to the 4th Kickstarter commandment. You ready?
Here.
What you got?
Okay. So this one, a lot of these go for anything on Kickstarter, right? Those first 3 rules, that could be anything on Kickstarter. Doesn't have to be a war game at all. This one is with specific regards to wargaming. If you back a miniatures war game or war game on Kickstarter, expect the game will fail and have fun while it lasts. That's the commandment. Now I say that, and I hear that in your voice, Paul, and I hear a lot of people on in the airwaves already being like, "What are you talking about?" So,
what are you talking about?
I've got 3 game names for you. Are you ready for them?
Yep.
Wrath of Kings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Guild Ball.
Mm-hmm.
The Other Side.
Oh
my! Stop calling me
why
out,
did you?
Chuck.
Why did
Stop
you just put the arrow in my heart, dude?
Oh man! All 3 of them. All 3 of them.
Yep. So
now, to be honest, 2 of them I got into after the Kickstarter, so I thought I was safe.
Yeah, because I got into Guild Ball right after the Kickstarter, but I did kickstart the other
Season
side.
1. All right, go on, sir. Now that
our souls have been ripped out of us.
Now that I've proved my point, right? Like the other commandments, this is not a definite. It will fail. Just expect that it will fail because there are examples of Kickstarter games. I'm looking at you, Kings of War. going strong after coming out of a Kickstarter campaign.
Right.
So it's not a universal rule, but it does seem that the lasting success is the exception and not the rule.
Right.
Most of these games are going to come out. And here's the deal. We back these games, especially the 3 that I just named, because the rules were released ahead of time. And when we read them, we were like, God damn, these are good. We know this game will be fun. And they are fun, right?
One of those games I even beta tested a whole lot.
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
But, and they're good, right? Wrath of Kings, great, super innovative, really cool game.
Cool models too.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I remember seeing a lot of those models at the cons
well,
and stuff I was going to.
My entire Kings of War army basically is Wrath of Kings models that I got for dirt cheap from Miniature Market when they were doing their clearance sales, trying to get rid of their warehouse full of it.
I mean, and all seriously, Kevin, how could you not go nuts for werewolves and vampires in the same faction?
Oh man, I like the underwater faction, but you're right. Yeah, that faction is dope. The G one, right?
It makes me sad. Anyway, sorry.
Goretzky? I don't remember. Anyway, yes, dude, the models are amazing. And even though the plastic wasn't perfect, the models they're still remarkable when you look at them. They're great. But these games don't last, right? So, where I was going to go with that is, I mean, Guild Ball, man, brought me back into the hobby, really.
And it was
fantastic.
And it was a
game.
Strong game too, man.
One of the best. R.I.P. man. Like, I still think about busting my Guild Ball stuff out. I love that game.
Yeah.
It's funny. This is going to sound like a weird thing, but so I have like it's not going to surprise anyone. I have like a rack of neoprene mats for war games.
Shocking.
And what? and I no matter what I do, as I'm putting one back, the Guild Ball one always stays near the top. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like subconscious that I just don't want it to go to the bottom of the rack. And it like always kind of elevates. I think that says a lot about how I feel about that game. And I don't ever regret spending money on it. And I found out about it after it had, it was the release Gen Con. It was just after it had actually been starting to be fulfilled. So it was after the Kickstarter, but I would have backed it.
Right.
Yeah. And like, the other side I did back, and I still actually, like, part of me believes in, especially since they're about to release models for it, but like, it's functionally dead. So you just have to expect that these games are going to fail when you back them. And that doesn't mean don't back miniatures war games. You really should, especially if you do the good consumer thing and you expect that they will deliver rules to you that you can read before you back a war game. And when you read the rules, you're like, yep, there's a good core foundation here. And you feel confident backing their miniatures line, right? So you should do it, because if you know that those things are true, and especially if you back it at 2 factions so that you can always teach someone, you should definitely back the game, because you will have the passion to want to play it. You're going to have a good time assembling and painting those miniatures, and you're going to have a really good time showing people the game that you believed enough in to spend money on Kickstarter. But yeah, just don't expect that they're going to have the kind of longevity of Warhammer.
Right.
It's just, exceedingly rare.
Yeah, and I mean the thing with that though, Kev, is it's kind of fascinating looking at it this way, because it happens with other games, right? There's like that critical mass, where it starts to take off, and that's where, and I guess this was a Kickstarter game, that's where Conquest is, right? They're at that point where it's gone through its like, will they or won't they phase, and they've gotten into will they? Yep. Right. So it's growing like mad.
I have an example of an enduring success too. It's Moonstone.
Yeah. That keeps
Moonstone
I forgot that was Kickstarter.
Moonstone, because it's a small company and they're agile, it's slow and steady, and it supports the creators of the game. 100% Kickstarter. Basically every release they do is a Kickstarter, every major release. So, and then once the Kickstarter fulfills, you can get it from the Moonstone site. So they're not all failures, and they don't all fail immediately. But the thing is, you have to go in with the expectation so that ultimately you don't feel as if you've wasted your time or money, because you haven't, right? If you've bought a thing, you've painted it, and especially if you painted it, because that's like quality hours of doing something that you like to do. And then playing that game with your friends, right? Like that's like the same kind of money you'd spend to go see a movie with your friends or go out to eat or do whatever, right? Like that time is well spent, that money is well spent, and you had a good time playing the game and showing it off, and ultimately sharing your hobby with another person, which is why we're here in the first place. So back those games. It's just, and that actually leads into the fifth commandment of Kickstarter, and the most important one, and that is, don't be afraid to back projects that you believe in, parentheses, but understand the risk. Right. Because I'm not going to stop backing Kickstarters, right? It's not going to happen. Because I've been so thoroughly burned at this point, I'm just much more discerning about what I back and investigating the companies of the games before I back them. And what that means is, unfortunately, sometimes I don't back something that I wanted to because I wanted to follow one of those middle three rules. And it turns out everything worked out fine. And then I have a little bit of regret because it's harder to get the product, right? That happens.
Right.
But at the same time, again, this is a specific example with me with a big promise from an unproven company. I was like, this is this company's first game, and they want me to give them $85 plus 17 shipping. Nah, bro, wait.
Right.
And now it's delivered, and everyone who has it loves it, and I can't fucking get it. So but that's the thing, right? Like, you just have to kind of live with it. And at the same time, back the projects you believe in. Like, I backed a game called Zuvadis that was a remake of an old Reiner Knizia game called Covadis. And I really wanted it, and I really believed in it because it had just beautiful, beautiful art. And I love Reiner Knizia as a developer, and I believed in the company, the publisher of this board game, Bitewing Games, right? They just like hit the things that I know to be needed, and I really believed in the game, and so bam, I backed it, and I got it a few months, or like a year later or whatever, and I still have open Kickstarters now. And like a really good example, I think, is the Academic from do you guys know about this? Have you seen the deck box that I kickstarted? I'm sure I've sent you pictures.
Yeah. Yep.
So here's how that story of that one, and this is to like prove that even for me, I'll violate these rules for number 5, right? Because there's something that I believed in. So there's a YouTube creator called the Tolarian Community College. It's led by a gentleman named the Professor.
Yeah, I know that.
All right. So yeah, he's got this approaching 2 million subscribers on YouTube. Very, very popular. Probably the most popular Magic the Gathering
Is this
creator.
the guy that's always in the suit and tie?
Yeah. Funny suit and ties. Yeah. That's the Professor. Often looks like a college professor, right? And yeah, so he was known for doing reviews of deck boxes for Magic the Gathering. And so because he did so many reviews, eventually he had enough cachet to approach GameGenic about a partnership where they would let him work with their designers because they were his favorite company for deck boxes. And he's like, I want to work with your designers to design the deck box of my dreams. And GameGenic was like, bet, let's do it. And they teamed up and they came up with this Kickstarter, which was for the name of the deck box is The Academic. And it was wildly successful, like $4 million successful.
Wow.
So
that's pretty freaking good.
Huge win for GameGenic, huge win for the Professor, and a huge win for all of us who have now had it delivered and have an amazing luxury deck box that's like one of my prized possessions. So again, you that number 5, that don't be afraid to back projects you believe in, but understand the risk. I mean, that was an unproven company. I didn't know anything about how it was. I mean, GameGenic, not necessarily unproven, but like it was the Professor never organized anything like this. I didn't necessarily know it was a sure thing. Right. So you just have to sometimes just jump in and take the risk.
I mean, I think the most important thing is that you have to remember that when you're kickstarting something, you're not buying it.
Right.
You're investing in it. That's the best way you can look at it, is that you are now becoming an investor in that company.
And you're hoping that you're going to get
buying anything. There's I mean, I feel like I know it's on there, but I think people ignore it and forget that there is, no guarantee that you will get this.
Oh, I mean,
that's right on Kickstarter's main page.
I mean, I'm still waiting on Tag Raid Team from Infinity. I don't play Infinity anymore.
Oh, right. Tag Raid. Yeah, Tag Raid. You're still waiting on that. That's true.
We actually got an update today.
And they've got another
for it. So.
Nice. And I mean, they've still got another Kickstarter out there, with a war game on the way. Yeah, for War Pro Adventures. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, because it was very much like your Roll 5. Like at the time, like I was very passionate about Infinity, was really loving it, and I missed out on the board game that they put out prior, which
Defiance.
Which everyone loved, and unfortunately, it didn't go to retail. It was Kickstart only, and I was like, I'm not missing out on this, and COVID happens, and.
And that's funny because that's one of those ones where that's rule 3, right? You be very wary of companies with a revolving slate of undelivered campaigns, because I think at almost all times they've got one out and one upcoming, right?
But they've always delivered.
Right, but this is why I say because Mythic had always delivered when I backed Monpok, or I wouldn't have.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the good thing is they're on the boats. They're getting to Spain.
Oh yeah, you're getting.
I'm getting the game. They're finally on the boats from China, and they're on their way to Spain to be shipped out to all the backers. So within the next 2 months, 3 months, I expect to have the game in my hand.
Well, there it is. So we're going to go back over them. The 5 rules. So your 5 Kickstarter commandments. Never back a game you'd be willing to lose more money than in a 50-50 bet in Vegas. Be wary of big promises from unproven companies. Be very wary of companies with a revolving slate of undelivered games. With regards to war games, expect the game is going to fail, but have as much fun with it as you can while it lasts. And number 5, don't be afraid to back projects you believe in, but understand the risk of backing them. And so I think if you live by those rules, you will have a much happier Kickstarter life. And you'll be more likely to avoid mistakes, like big upsetting things that can happen, like losing many $100s on
Monpok.
Yeah. Here's the other thing, Chops. One of the reasons why I don't really do miniatures Kickstarters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like getting that much stuff at once.
That's actually a fair point. Yeah.
When God Tier shipped and it got here, I had like boxes and boxes in my living room, and I was like, "Oh my God, what have I done?"
Mm-hmm. That happens. Yeah, I feel like that's every time I get a box on my doorstep that says CMON before I open it. I think those exact words. What have I done?
That was so I think the other side I think was the very first miniature game I backed. And
oh boy, that was a big
that was the thing too. So Paul and I went in on the big 2-player set. We split it, and it shipped to him, and we met up in the parking lot somewhere doing a shifty parking lot deal. And it was just he just kept handing me shit, and I was like, "There's more." He just kept going. I was like, "Oh fuck."
Chris, I backed the 2-player thing from myself.
I'm a genius. Oh no.
I got that whole box and didn't split it.
and then ME3 happened, so
yeah. Oh boy.
Talk about
anyway.
Yeah.
I mean that's how it is though.
The Sanderson kickstart's been great though. So
I mean that's a pretty safe bet at this point.
That was a safe bet.
Mm-hmm. And that's also rule 5. Don't be afraid to back something you believe in. I think when Brian Sanderson popped down those manuscripts, though, you're like, I'm at least getting the PDFs.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the minute when they got to the end of it, and he's like, oh, and the Kickstarter's live right now, I was like, click, done.
Same thing. Yeah. I watched the video. I was like, oh, look, there's money out of my account.
Yep.
It's like, where did that go?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there was no waiting on that one. That's
sure. And I took a risk on the YouTuber that's part of BookTube, Daniel Green. He's doing a new book, a sci-fi kind of cyberpunk book that he kickstarted for self-publishing. So I went and threw him some money in. I feel safe because it's the same people that did Legends and Lattes as the publishers. So I felt very like this is going to be okay because Legends and Lattes was very successful. It's a very good book. I actually just picked it up at Barnes & Noble the other day.
Nice.
What? Sorry.
What?
A good tarot card?
Oh, nice. The Final Girl. They do exist. What beneficial tarot cards do exist? There's, I think, one in every box.
Yeah, Paul's been playing Final Girl this entire time while I've been recording.
Oh, I'm sure he has. I'm sure he's been muting the mic to roll the dice quite a few times because those dice. Let me tell you, dear listeners, those Final Girl dice are chunky.
That is true. I got like the deck box out and like rolling it so it doesn't hit the sides.
Ooh, see what you got. What you got to do is you got to go buy one of those. I don't remember the name of the company. It's like the Metal Dice something company or whatever. They make, and you can get them at any FLGS, I think, or many FLGSs, I guess, carry these. They start flat and they have buttons, and you button the corners, and they turn into little dice trays, and they're like faux leather on the outside and felt on the inside. Boy, those things like dice roll whisper quiet on them and like still satisfyingly roll, and they pack flat so you can like put them like, if you think about your wargaming case, you can just like slide it into the book slot.
Right.
Yeah, super nice. I know it's downstairs with my Final Girl set up right now. my wargaming dice tray. Yeah, it's quiet. But man, those Final Girl dice, big clicky clacky. They're super satisfying to roll, especially when you're rolling like 3 or 4 of them, because you feel like you're cheating when you're rolling that many dice anyway in that game.
Yeah.
Anyway, Final Girl, good game. Maybe we'll do an episode on that.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I think that's pretty much a guarantee.
Yeah.
I mean, what could be better for October?
That is true.
True that. But on topic, you guys. On topic.
Oh yeah.
Final thoughts.
No, Final Girl was a Kickstarted, so it's on topic.
Oh hey,
that's true.
Damn it. And there's one coming up, and I'm going all in, baby. Well, at least all in for the stuff that's new. All right. Final thoughts for Kickstarter, Chris.
I'm very wary these days.
Yeah, you guys have always been pretty.
Yeah,
wary.
I mean, it's not. I don't like giving my money to something that's not going to be a guarantee. So that's why
my brother, you're the person with the sane perspective here.
Yeah.
I am the one that is not. Yeah.
I mean, there are a few, like, if like I will definitely 100% like auto, if I've got the money, auto just any Sanderson leather bound Kickstarter, like it's done. But anything else other than that, like I'm wary. I'm very wary.
Yeah, I back a lot of board games. But Paul, your thoughts?
Just remember, you're not buying, you're backing.
Yeah.
Like you're giving that money to somebody else who hasn't made that product.
And that's my problem.
Hell yeah.
And so you gotta like, and I guess it goes to rule number 1. You just gotta know that money, you gotta bet well.
Yeah.
You gotta bet well.
Yeah. And my final thought is, don't ever let FOMO. This isn't a hard and fast rule, but that's why it's not one of the commandments. But for me, it's like, make sure you're questioning your FOMO.
Mm-hmm.
That's like really, really interrogate that FOMO when you're feeling it, when you're in it.
And in all honesty, that's why I'm not losing money on Rivenstone.
Jerk.
Yeah. There you go.
Thanks for rubbing it in my face.
And that's yeah.
I'll do it again.
That's the final thoughts. So, listeners, especially of me, who's been actually very rambly for the past 20 minutes of this episode. Thank you. I don't know. Thanks so much for tuning in. You guys are the reason that we do this. So big a special thanks to our patrons. You guys rock. Thanks to Static as a City for the amazing in and out music for us. And don't be shy. Come to the Discord. It'll be in the description of this episode. And it is one of the coziest Discords on the internet. Bye.